Did you even ask the owner of this house for permission? The question slipped out of my mouth calmer than I expected. I had just opened the door to my condo, still holding grocery bags in my arms, when I saw her. Bella, my daughter-in-law, standing in the middle of my living room like she lived there. 2 huge suitcases sat at her feet, and her face showed a mix of surprise and something worse, annoyance, as if I was the one disturbing her. As if my coming home had ruined whatever she had planned. She blinked twice, then let out that awkward little laugh she always uses when someone calls her out. It was short and sharp, the kind of laugh meant to make the other person feel silly. But I didn't look away. I stood right there at the doorway of my own home, holding the heavy grocery bags, waiting for an answer she clearly didn't have. "Hey Ava, I didn't hear you come in." Her voice sounded light, almost musical, like we were just chatting about the weather. As if those suitcases weren't right there. As if it was perfectly normal for her to be inside my condo on a Thursday afternoon without calling, warning me, or even considering that this was my home, my safe place, the only corner of the world where no one demanded anything from me. I didn't move from the doorway. The bags were starting to leave red marks on my arms, but I didn't drop them. Something inside me had hardened the moment I saw those suitcases. Something that had been soft and willing to bend for years. I had finally reached a boundary. "I asked you a question, Bella." This time my voice came out firmer. She tucked a strand of perfectly styled hair behind her ear, a gesture she used whenever she needed a little time to think. Her eyes, carefully shaded to match her designer blouse, avoided mine for a second before she looked back with that small, condescending smile I hated so much. "Ava, don't exaggerate. Caleb and I just need to stay for a few days. They're renovating our condo, and the noise is unbearable. The crew starts at 6 a.m. and doesn't leave till 7 p.m. We can't sleep, we can't work, we can't live like that. We figured it wouldn't be a problem to come here. After all, you live alone and you have 2 bedrooms you don't even use." There it was, the sentence that summed up exactly what my family thought of me. You live alone, and you have rooms you don't use. As if my life were just empty space waiting to be filled by other people's needs. As if an unused room automatically meant free for anyone. As if my 68 years on this earth didn't give me the right to choose who I wanted in my home. I finally walked inside and placed the bags on the dining table. The canned goods hit the wood louder than I expected. Bella stepped back slightly, so small a movement most people would miss, but I saw it. Her confidence was starting to crack. I stood beside the table, not unpacking anything, not walking to the kitchen like I normally did. My hands rested on the wood, and I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. It wasn't fear. It wasn't nerves. It was something else. The feeling of crossing a line I could no longer uncross. "Does Caleb know you're here?" I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear it. Bella sighed dramatically, like I was being unreasonable. "Of course he knows, Ava. It was his idea. He's finishing some work at the office, and he'll be over later with the rest of our stuff. I thought he would have called to tell you." He didn't call. No, he didn't call. And that silence told me everything. Caleb. The boy I raised alone after his father walked out when he was 7. The boy I fed and clothed with double shifts. The boy who once said he'd take care of me forever. That boy, now a 42-year-old man, thought it was perfectly okay to move into my house without asking me, as if I were just part of his convenience. I walked over to the suitcases and stared at them like they were foreign objects. They were expensive, the kind Bella liked showing off online, shiny and new. Probably bought during one of those fancy trips they took every couple of months. Meanwhile, I still used the same suitcase I bought 15 years ago at a clearance sale. "And you thought this was okay? Showing up at my house with your suitcases without asking if I agreed? Without even considering that maybe I had plans? That maybe I value my privacy? That maybe I don't want people living here?" Bella crossed her arms, her posture shifting into full defense. "Ava, you're Caleb's mother. We're family. I don't know why you're making this complicated. It's just a few days, maybe a week. We're not asking for something impossible. I actually thought you'd be happy to have company. You always say this place feels empty." "Empty? The word echoed in my head like a slow bell. Yes, I had once said the house felt quiet after my sister Sandra moved out last year. But silence is not emptiness. I chose my silence. After decades of noise, demands, and being constantly needed, quiet was finally peace. But Bella had twisted that small confession into permission. Listen to me closely. My voice stayed low, but it carried weight. Bella frase. Something in my tone finally made her listen. This house can feel however it feels to me, quiet or noisy, empty or full. But what it will never be is available to anyone who decides to use it without my permission. I am the owner of this house, Bella. Not a backup option for when you two have a problem. She opened her mouth to speak, but just then the key turned in the lock. The door opened and Caleb walked in, smiling casually as if everything was normal. He carried 2 more bags. Mom, glad you're home. Bella explained, right? We'll only be here for a week, maybe 2. You won't even notice us. His words floated in the air like they were the most reasonable thing in the world. He dropped the bags beside the suitcases, dusted off his hands, and looked at me with the same expression he had at 12 when he came home late and hoped his smile would get him out of trouble. But he wasn't 12 anymore. And I was no longer the exhausted young mother too tired to argue. He walked closer to kiss my cheek, but I didn't move. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. Something in my stillness made him stop halfway. Confusion flickered across his face before he forced a smile. What's wrong, Mom? Bad day. A bad day. As if this were about traffic or a long line at the bank. Not the fact he had decided my house was his solution to a problem I didn't create. I didn't have a bad day, Caleb. I came home to find your wife moving into my house without anyone asking if I agreed. He actually laughed. A real laugh. Mom, don't be dramatic. I called you twice this morning and you didn't answer, so we figured you were out. I thought we'd just get settled before you came back. It's not a big deal. I looked at Bella, still by the suitcases, arms crossed, watching us with a look that mixed discomfort with a touch of satisfaction. As if this all proved I was the difficult one. So you called twice. I didn't answer. And that gave you permission to move into my house. We're not moving in, Mom. Just staying a few days. Caleb walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water I bought that afternoon, and drank straight from it. That small, careless gesture said everything. He didn't see a difference between his house and mine. I closed my eyes, trying to control the pressure in my chest. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was the heavy weight of years spent always giving, always understanding, always saying yes. How many days is a few days, Caleb? He shrugged, still drinking. A week. 2 at most. They'll finish fast. 2 weeks. 14 days of losing my peace. 14 days of changing my routines. 14 days of giving up the quiet I finally earned. And you just assumed I'd be fine with that? Caleb capped the bottle and looked at me with a patient, almost condescending, expression. Mom, you're my mother. Of course I assumed you'd help. What did you expect us to do? Pay $150 a night for a hotel, when you have 2 empty bedrooms? That doesn't make sense. There it was, the real reason. Money. Convenience. Not love. Not need. Just comfort. Theirs, not mine. Bella spoke softly, using that reasonable tone people use when they're trying to twist a situation in their favor. Ava, we don't want to cause trouble. If it helps, we can contribute to expenses. Maybe $50 for utilities. $50. As if this were about water and electricity. As if my privacy had a price tag. It's not about money, Bella. Caleb came closer and placed a hand on my shoulder. The same gesture he always used when he wanted to soften me. Then what is it, Mom? Tell me and we'll fix it. You want us to buy groceries? Done. You want us to clean before we leave? No problem. You want quiet in the mornings? We'll be silent. What I needed was simple. For them to have asked. For them to have understood I had the right to say no. For them to respect my space the same way they'd expect me to respect theirs. I gently removed Caleb's hand from my shoulder. What I need, Caleb, is for you to understand this is my house. Not a hotel. Not a backup plan. Not a place you get to use whenever things go wrong. This is where I live. This is where I rest. And I have the right to decide who stays here. But we're your family, Mom. He said it like it was the final answer. Maybe for years I believed that too. That being family meant always bending, always giving up my needs. But something had changed. Maybe turning 68. Maybe losing my friend Tina last year, and hearing her talk about how she never lived for herself. Maybe I was just tired, deeply, deeply tired, of being invisible in my own life. Exactly because you're my family, I said quietly. This hurts even more. Because I expected you, more than anyone, to understand that I also have the right to my space, my peace, and my choices. Caleb glanced at Bella. A quick look, but enough for me to see it. A silent exchange shared by couples facing what they think is a difficult person. And in that moment, I was the problem. Caleb sighed loudly, running his hands over his face with frustrated patience before looking at me with the expression he had perfected over the years. The look of a son dealing with a complicated mother. Fine, Mom. I get it. You're upset because we didn't give you more notice. And honestly, you're right about that. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck and sighed. But we're already here. The bags are inside. Bella already unpacked a few things in the guest room. So what do you want us to do now? Go look for a hotel at 6 p.m. on a Thursday when I have meetings at 7 a.m. tomorrow. There it was, the guilt. Not as tears, not as an apology, but as a list of practical problems I would cause if I didn't let them stay. As if them unpacking without permission suddenly forced me to accept their decision. As if their poor planning automatically became my responsibility. I looked down the hallway toward the bedrooms. The guest room door was slightly open, and from where I stood, I could see part of the bed, clothes already scattered on top. Bella had said she unpacked a few things, but she hadn't asked permission to stay. She was claiming space. I walked toward the room. I heard Caleb's footsteps follow behind me, and Bella's voice whispering something to him. Too low for me to hear. I pushed the door open fully. What I saw confirmed everything. Clothes on the bed. Toiletries lined up neatly on the dresser. Bella's travel case open beside the mirror. 2 pairs of shoes arranged by the wall. A laptop plugged in by the nightstand. This wasn't someone staying a few days. This was someone settling in for weeks. I turned to Caleb. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, watching me like he was waiting for my reaction. A week, you said? He nodded, eyes shifting away for a second before meeting mine again. 2 at the most, Mom. I told you. And this setup is for 2 weeks? The laptop? The toiletries? Enough clothes for a month. Caleb shrugged in that careless way he always used when he wanted to downplay something serious. Bella has to work from here. And obviously we brought what we needed to be comfortable. We weren't going to live out of a suitcase for 2 weeks. Comfortable. That word echoed in my head. They needed to be comfortable. In my house. In my space. Using my resources. And I was expected to just understand. I turned and walked back to the living room. Bella was now sitting in my favorite armchair, the one by the window, the one I saved for months to buy, the one where I read every afternoon and took my morning coffee, the one where I cried after Tina's funeral, the one where I made the decision to finally retire from that exhausting job. She sat there scrolling on her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. When she saw me, she smiled politely. Ava, will really be as little trouble as possible. You won't even notice us. I work remotely, so I'll be in the room all day. Caleb leaves early and comes back late. We can buy our own food or cook for the 3 of us. Whatever you prefer. Whatever I prefer. As if this was a true choice. As if she was giving me options instead of offering slightly different versions of a situation I never agreed to. I walked up to the armchair and stood there silently, looking at her. Her smile slowly faded. After a few seconds, she stood up awkwardly. Oh, did you want to sit here? I didn't want the chair. I wanted her to understand this whole condo was mine. Every corner of it. Nothing here was available for anyone to take over. Caleb walked into the living room then. The tension was thick enough for him to stop halfway, looking between us like he could feel it in the air. Mom, can we talk? Just you and me. I nodded. Maybe talking to him alone would help. We went to the kitchen. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his expression somewhere between serious and impatient. All right, Mom. Talk. What's really bothering you? Because it feels like this is about more than us not calling first. There was more. Of course there was more. But how do you explain years of feeling invisible in a few sentences? How do you explain that this suitcase situation was only the latest reminder of a pattern that had existed for decades? You bother me, Caleb. My voice was calm, but steady. It bothers me that you grew up thinking my life is something you can use when you need it, but not something you have to respect. He frowned, genuinely confused. I don't understand what you mean. When was the last time you visited me without needing something? He froze. His mouth opened, then closed. He tried again, then stopped. He was searching his memory, and the fact that he couldn't find an example said everything. Mom, I come see you often. You come when you need me to watch your dog. You come when you need me to keep some documents for you. You come when you fight with Bella and need a place to stay for one night. You come when your car breaks down and you need money. I took a breath. But when was the last time you came just to ask how I was? To spend time with me? To care about my life beyond what I could do for you? That's not fair, Mom. His voice rose, defensive. I call you. I text you. I asked you last week if you wanted to go out to dinner with us. You invited me because it was Bella's birthday and you needed someone else to help pay the bill. You barely talked to me the whole night. You two argued about vacations while I sat there eating my salad. He stared at me in shock. I didn't know you felt like that. Why didn't you say something? Because every time I speak up, I'm told I'm overreacting, that I'm too sensitive, that I should be grateful. So I stopped saying anything. I shook my head. I stopped expecting anything. I stopped believing my presence mattered unless I was useful. Caleb dragged his hand through his hair again, frustrated. This is ridiculous. You're turning this into something bigger than it is. We just need to stay a few days. We're not trying to invade your life. And it never occurred to you that I have a life too? That maybe I had plans? That I enjoy my privacy? What plans, Mom? What do you even do all day that's so important? There it was. The truth, or at least his truth. In his mind, my life wasn't important. My time wasn't valuable. I was just available. I don't have to justify my days to you. The fact that I want to be alone in my own house is reason enough. He let out a short laugh, shaking his head. So what? You'd rather be alone than help your own son? Your comfort is more important than your family. It wasn't about comfort. It was about respect. About finally having a voice. What I'm saying, I said slowly, is that you should have asked. You should have given me the choice. You should have treated me the way you treat anyone else you're asking for a big favor. It's not a big favor, Mom. It's letting your son sleep in your guest room for 2 weeks. It's giving up my privacy for 2 weeks. Sharing my bathroom, my kitchen, my living room. It's giving up the peace I earned after years of sacrificing everything for everyone else. Caleb looked at the ceiling like he needed strength from above. You know what, Mom? I think the problem is you've been alone too long. You've become selfish. I'm not trying to hurt you. It's just the truth. You weren't like this before. You always opened your home to people. Remember Victor? You let him stay for 3 months. Remember Aunt Sandra? She stayed here a year. Of course I remembered. And I remembered how drained and invisible I felt during those times. But I never said a word because people needed me. You're right. I didn't complain back then. I kept quiet. I smiled. I acted like everything was fine while I slowly disappeared inside myself. Because I thought being a good mother meant sacrificing everything. I took a shaky breath. But I got tired, Caleb. Tired of being everyone's solution. Tired of being taken for granted. Tired of no one ever asking what I need. But we did ask you, he argued. We just asked. You asked after you'd already unpacked. After you'd settled in. After you made the decision for me. I walked out of the kitchen. I couldn't stand there any longer. In the living room, Bella stood by the window now, arms crossed. She turned when she heard me, and for the first time, her expression wasn't confident. She looked cautious, maybe even worried. Caleb came out behind me. Silence filled the room like thick fog. Finally, Bella spoke. Carefully, "Ava, if you really don't want us to stay, we can find another solution. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable in your own home." I looked at Caleb, waiting for him to support what she'd said. He didn't. He looked away, jaw tight, annoyed. In that moment, everything became clear. My son wasn't going to defend me. He wasn't going to apologize. He wasn't going to admit he was wrong, because in his mind, I was still the mother who always said yes. The mother who never complained. The mother who existed to be convenient. I sat down in my armchair. Finally, every part of me felt heavy. "Explain something to me," I said quietly, "and be honest." Caleb looked at me, arms crossed. "What do you want to know?" "If the situation were reversed, if I showed up at your condo with my bags and said I wanted to stay for 2 weeks, would you accept me without hesitation?" A glance passed between him and Bella. A quick, guilty one. Bella cleared her throat. "Well, we'd have to think about it. Our place is smaller. We both work from home. It would be complicated." "Exactly," I said softly. "You'd think about it. And you'd have every right to. No one would call you selfish for wanting your own space." "But you're my mother," Caleb said quickly. "It's different." "Why is it different? Because I'm your mother? Does that mean my needs matter less?" "No, that's not what But it's what you show me," I interrupted. "Every time you assume I'll be available. Every time you decide something for me before asking. Every time you dismiss how I feel when it doesn't match what you want." I stood and walked toward the suitcases by the entrance. Those bags represented years of me teaching him that my life was always open for him to step into. He approached and placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "Mom, please. Don't make this harder. We just want a place to sleep for a few days. We're not taking anything from you." But they were. They were taking my ability to decide for myself. They were taking my peace. They were taking the little bit of space I had left to simply exist as a person, not a tool. I moved my shoulder away. "This is my house, Caleb. I pay the rent. I pay the bills. I decide who stays here. And right now, I need you both to leave." Silence. Complete silence. Caleb stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Bella let out a soft, shocked sound. "What did you say?" she whispered. Caleb's voice cracked. "Mom, please tell me you're joking." "I'm not. I need you to take your things and leave." Bella stepped closer, her voice shaky. "Ava, wait. We can talk about this. If we messed up, we can fix it. You don't have to kick us out. We're family." Family. There it was again, used like a shield. "Exactly because you're family," I said. "This hurts more. Because I expected better from you." Caleb laughed, sharp, disbelief-filled. "This is insane. You're being completely irrational. You're going to kick your own son out? Over what? Not calling first. Not following some rule you made up on the spot." "I didn't make anything up. Asking before moving into someone's home is basic respect. It's what you'd expect from anyone else." He stared at me like I was a stranger. "I can't believe you're doing this after everything we've done for you." The words hit the room with a cold heaviness. Everything they'd done for me. I waited for him to explain, to list the sacrifices he believed he had made. He didn't. He just stood there, breathing hard, as if those words alone were enough. "Everything we've done for you," he repeated. "Tell me, Caleb. Remind me again what exactly you two have done for me that should make me give up my peace of mind." Caleb opened his mouth, then shut it. He glanced at Bella, but she was staring at the floor, biting her bottom lip. When he looked back at me, something had changed in his face. It wasn't just frustration anymore. It was real anger building fast. "You want a list? Fine. We bought you a new TV last year when yours stopped working. I offered to pay you back for it," I said. "You told me it wasn't necessary, that it was a gift. And then you brought it up at every family dinner for the next 6 months, like you were showing off your generosity. We drove you to the emergency room when you twisted your ankle. You dropped me at the entrance, I corrected. You didn't even come inside. I waited 3 hours alone until a nurse called a cab to take me home. We invite you to dinner whenever we have a celebration. You invite me when you need someone to help pay the bill, I replied. Or when you want to look good in front of others by proving you include your mother. But during those dinners, you two talk to each other, scroll through your phones, and make plans that don't include me. I'm just there as decoration. Caleb stepped closer, and there was something sharp in the way he moved. Not physically dangerous, but filled with emotion that was about to spill over. You know what your problem is, Mom? Nothing anyone does for you is ever enough. There's always something wrong. There's always a but. You always find a way to make yourself the victim. I'm not playing the victim, I said calmly. I'm setting a boundary. That's very different. No, he snapped. What you're doing is punishing me because your life didn't turn out the way you wanted. Because Dad left. Because you had to work hard. Because you feel lonely. And now when I finally have some stability, when I finally ask for one favor, you choose this moment to make me pay for things that happened decades ago. Each word hit like a physical blow. They were meant to hurt me, to make me doubt myself, to twist my boundary into some kind of revenge. And the worst part? There was a tiny bit of truth mixed in. Yes, sometimes I felt lonely. Yes, I carried old resentments. Yes, I looked at my life and wondered where all my energy and dreams had gone. But none of that changed the fact that I still deserved peace. I still deserved to be asked. My life was not free territory just because my son decided he needed it. You're right about one thing, Caleb, I said softly. My life didn't turn out the way I wanted. But do you know which part hurts the most? The part where I raised a son who sees me as a resource, not a person. The part where I was so busy being useful that I forgot how to be valued. The part where I believed love meant sacrificing myself in silence. Bella stepped in then, her voice shaky but still trying to sound reasonable. Ava, please. We know you're upset. We know we made a mistake by not asking first. But kicking Caleb out, kicking your own son out, is too much. It's cruel. Cruel. The word echoed in my mind. Protecting my space was cruel. Setting a boundary was cruel. Saying no was cruel. But showing up unannounced wasn't cruel. Assuming my life was theirs to use wasn't cruel. Ignoring my feelings wasn't cruel. Apparently, the cruelty only went one direction. You want to know what's cruel? I said quietly. Raising a child alone for decades. Giving up every dream I had. Working until my hands bled and my back bent. Also, he could have the chances I never had. And when I finally get a little peace, I find out that to him, I'm just a convenient place to stay when a hotel is too expensive. That's not fair. Caleb yelled now, his face flushed. I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask for Dad to leave. I didn't ask for you to work so hard. Those were your decisions, your circumstances. You can't blame me for that. I'm not blaming you for any of that, I replied. I'm blaming you for treating me like I'm not a person. For acting like my only role is to make your life easier. For showing up today and acting like my consent didn't matter. He stormed toward the suitcases, grabbed one with unnecessary force, and looked at me with a painful mix of hurt and anger. You know what, Mom? You're right. We're leaving. I don't need this. I don't need to stay somewhere I'm not welcome. Where my own mother treats me like a stranger. I'm not treating you like a stranger, I said. I'm treating you the same way you treat me, without prior consideration. Caleb lifted the suitcase and headed to the door. Bella grabbed the other one and followed. But before she reached the exit, she turned back to me. I hope this is worth it, Ava. I hope your space and peace are worth losing your son. My son isn't lost because I set a boundary, I said. If he leaves and never comes back, it's because he chose comfort over our relationship. Because he'd rather be angry than admit he was wrong. Caleb had already stepped into the hallway when he suddenly stopped. He turned back, looked at me with a strange expression, then let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Oh, this is perfect, he said. Just perfect. Wait until I tell everyone how my own mother kicked me out for asking for help. Wait until the family hears. Wait until Aunt Sandra hears that the generous Ava has turned selfish. There it was, the threat. The promise to twist the story. The warning that he would make sure I looked like the villain. For a moment, I felt that old guilt creeping up. That instinct to apologize, fix everything, avoid conflict. But then I heard Tina's voice in my memory, weak, tired, but full of truth. Ava. The biggest mistake I made was caring more about what others thought of me than what I thought of myself. I took a deep breath. Go ahead, Caleb, I said. Tell anyone you want. If your version is that you asked respectfully and I refused for no reason, that's your story to tell. But we both know that's not the truth. Caleb slammed the suitcase on the floor. You know what, Mom? You're right. I didn't ask permission. And you know why? Because I never thought I'd have to ask my own mother to stay in her house. Because I grew up believing family helps without conditions. Because you raised me to believe your doors were always open. Then I taught you wrong, I said. I taught you that love meant unlimited access. That being family meant I couldn't say no. That my needs didn't matter. And now I'm correcting that mistake. Bella stepped in again, tears running down her cheeks. Whether from sadness or frustration, I couldn't tell. Please, Ava. Caleb, let's calm down. It doesn't have to end like this. We can fix this. We can't, I said. There's nothing to fix. You need somewhere to stay. I need my space. Those two things don't match. It really is that simple. Caleb picked up his suitcase again and walked into the hallway. His voice was colder, distant. When you change your mind, and trust me, you will, don't expect me to come back pretending nothing happened. Don't expect me to forget that you kicked me out when I needed you. I didn't kick you out because you needed me, I said. I kicked you out because you used need as an excuse to ignore me. He left without another word. Bella followed but turned back once more. I don't understand you, Ava. I really don't. What kind of mother does this? The kind who finally learned that loving herself isn't selfish, I said. It's survival. She shook her head and left. They waited for the elevator, standing stiff and tense. When the doors opened, Caleb walked inside first, dragging the suitcase so roughly it hit the door frame. Bella stepped in behind him. Just before the doors closed, Caleb looked at me one last time. He didn't speak, but the expression said everything: anger, disappointment, confusion, and a deep pain that felt almost like loss. Part of me wanted to run to them, stop the doors, call them back, apologize, let them stay. That part of me, the one trained for decades to put everyone else's comfort above my own, begged me to fix it. But I didn't move. I listened as the elevator descended, each floor taking with it a part of the old version of myself. I walked back into my condo and closed the door. The silence felt different. Not peaceful, not comfortable. It felt heavy. It felt like consequence. I went to the guest room where Bella had started unpacking. Her clothes were still on the bed. Her toiletries lined up neatly. The laptop was plugged in beside the nightstand, its tiny light blinking in the dim room. I gathered their things, not angrily but carefully. I folded the clothes even though my hands shook. I placed the toiletries into a bag. I unplugged the laptop and put it with the rest. Not to be cruel, but to reclaim the room. To make it mine again. Empty, but empty because I chose it. When I was done, everything was arranged neatly on the bed. If they came back for their belongings, they would find them cared for. Because I could set boundaries without being unkind. I could say no without destroying what belonged to others. I returned to the living room and sat in my chair by the window. Outside, the sky was getting darker, and lights were coming on in the neighboring apartments, small glowing squares against the dusk. I wondered how many of those windows held stories like mine. How many women were sitting in their living rooms right now, struggling with the heaviness of setting a boundary. How many were wondering if they had done the right thing. My phone buzzed in the pocket of my sweater. I pulled it out and saw a message from Caleb. Just 3 words. Hope you're happy. I didn't reply because I wasn't happy. There was nothing joyful about what had just happened. There was no moment of triumph in closing the door on my own son. There was no satisfaction in knowing that it might be weeks, maybe even months, before we talked again. But there was something else. Not happiness, but something that still felt important. There was clarity. There was the certainty that, for the first time in decades, I had chosen my own dignity over someone else's comfort. There was a feeling that I had recovered something I didn't even realize I had lost. The right to say no without explaining myself over and over. Another message came in. This time from Bella. Caleb is very upset. I don't think he'll call you for a long time. I hope your pride is worth it. My pride? As if setting boundaries was about pride. As if protecting my space was vanity instead of self-care. As if the problem was me resisting, and not them ignoring my limits. I turned off my phone. Not to avoid the consequences of what I'd done, but because I needed silence. I needed space to think about everything that had just happened without messages trying to make me feel guilty. I got up and walked to the kitchen. The grocery bags were still on the table, exactly where I'd left them. It felt like hours had passed, but it had probably only been 45 minutes. I began putting the groceries away automatically. Vegetables in the fridge, canned food in the pantry, bread in its usual basket on the counter. Every item went to its place, and somehow that simple routine comforted me. After all the emotional chaos, these tiny tasks grounded me. Something steady I could hold on to. When I finished, I made myself a cup of tea. I heated the water, picked my favorite mug, the light blue ceramic one I had bought from a local market years ago, and watched the tea leaves slowly open in the hot water. The familiar smell wrapped around me, and for the first time since I walked into my condo that afternoon, I felt like I could actually breathe again. I sat back in my armchair, holding the warm mug in both hands. The heat seeped into my palms. Outside, night had completely settled. The city kept moving like always, completely unaware of the small drama that had unfolded in my 6th-floor apartment. And then, without warning, I started to cry. They weren't loud sobs. It wasn't the dramatic heartbreak of losing something priceless. They were quiet tears that slid down my cheeks as I sat there, holding my tea, staring into the darkness outside my window. Tears that had waited years, decades, for their moment. I cried for the mother I used to be. That young woman who worked 2 shifts and still came home too tired to stay awake while helping Caleb with homework. I cried for all the years I convinced myself that sacrificing everything was the same as loving, when really it was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear that if I didn't give my whole self, my son wouldn't love me. Fear of ending up alone. And now here I was alone anyway. But this loneliness was different. It didn't come from being abandoned or rejected. It came from choosing my dignity. And even though it hurt, even though it felt like I had lost something important, there was also a strange relief. Like finally putting down something heavy after carrying it for so long that you forgot what it felt like to be free. I remembered a moment from when Caleb was 8 years old. It had been a terrible day at the coffee shop. A customer yelled because his order took too long. My boss blamed me for something that wasn't my fault. My feet were so swollen I could barely walk. When I walked into the house, Caleb was in the living room watching TV. "Mom," he said without looking away from the screen. "I'm hungry." I dropped my bags by the door, kicked off my shoes that were squeezing my aching feet, and went straight to the kitchen to make him food. I didn't sit down first. I didn't take even 1 minute for myself, because that's what good mothers did. Good mothers put their kids first. Always. But what was I really teaching him by living that way? I was teaching him that women existed to serve. That mothers had no limits. That saying, "Give me a minute, I'm tired," was selfish instead of basic self-care. And now, 34 years later, my son believed exactly that. It wasn't entirely his fault. I had been his most consistent teacher. Every time I ignored my own needs, every time I smiled through exhaustion, every time I pretended things were fine when I was breaking inside, I taught him that I didn't matter as much as he did. And he learned that lesson perfectly. I took a sip of my tea. It was cooling down, but its familiar taste comforted me anyway. My thoughts drifted to Tina, those last conversations in the hospital. She had been so brave, facing death with a kind of honesty that only comes when there's no time left for lies. "You know the saddest thing, Ava?" she said one afternoon as I peeled an orange for us. "It's not that I'm dying. Everyone dies. The sad thing is I spent my whole life waiting for the day I could finally live for myself. When the kids grew up, when I retired, when I saved more money, when. And now that moment will never come. I ran out of time. She squeezed my hand with surprising strength and said, "Don't make my mistake. Don't wait. If you need to say no, say it. If you need space, take it. If you need to choose yourself, do it. No one else will do it for you." I finished my tea and set the empty mug on the side table. I sat in the quiet of my condo, listening to the distant noise of the city. A car passed below. Someone laughed in a nearby apartment. Life kept going, indifferent to my small personal revolution. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my sister Sandra. Caleb had already called her. Of course he had. News like this travels fast in a family. "Ava, what happened?" Caleb called me upset, saying you kicked him out. He said they only needed to stay a few days. "Is that true? Call me when you can." I could picture the whole conversation. Caleb presenting himself like the victim. Sandra trying to be diplomatic, but secretly leaning toward him because he was the baby of the family. And I would be the difficult, selfish mother. I should have been angry. I should have wanted to call her immediately to defend myself. But something surprising happened. I didn't care as much as I thought I would. Because the truth was, Sandra had never understood the sacrifice I made when she stayed with me for a full year after her divorce. She assumed I always had extra space, extra energy, extra time, because that's what women like me were expected to have. Pieces of ourselves to give away. I wasn't calling her. Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe not at all. Maybe it was time to stop caring so much about what people thought. I got up and walked toward my bedroom. As I passed the guest room, I glanced inside. Chloe's things were still neatly arranged on the bed. I'd have to tell Caleb to pick them up tomorrow. But that was tomorrow's problem, not tonight's. In my bedroom, I changed slowly. I put on my soft, comfortable pajamas. The ones that were a little old, but felt like a warm hug. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, moving through my routine with calm, steady motions. Every action felt like a quiet reminder. This is my space. This is my time. This is my life. I got into bed and turned off the light. Darkness filled the room. And with it came an unexpected feeling, relief. Pure and simple relief. No noise in the morning. No sharing the bathroom. No tiptoeing around other people's needs. No putting myself last in my own home. But with that relief came pain too, because my son was angry with me. Because there was now distance between us. Because choosing my peace came with consequences. I let myself feel both things. The relief and the pain. The confidence that I did the right thing. And the sadness of what it cost. The strength of setting boundaries. And the fear of what would come next. I closed my eyes, slowly drifting toward sleep. Right before I fully drifted off, one last thought came to me. Maybe this is what real adulthood is. Not getting a job or buying a home or raising a child. But finally understanding that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's justice. It's the only way to live honestly. With that thought, I finally let myself rest. I changed the sheets on my bed, even though I had already changed them just 3 days ago. It felt like a kind of physical therapy, something to help me deal with all the emotions still spinning around inside me. Around noon, I finally decided to call Sandra. Not because I felt I owed her an explanation, but because she was my sister, and no matter what happened, I still cared about what she thought. I dialed her number and waited while it rang. "Ava, thank goodness. I've been worried all night." Sandra's voice sounded truly stressed, and something inside me softened a little. Sandra. I'm sorry I didn't answer sooner. It was a rough night. Caleb told me what happened. Well, he told me his version. I want to hear yours. At least she hadn't automatically assumed Caleb was right and I was wrong. I mentally thanked her for that before I began explaining everything. I told her about the suitcases at the entrance, about how they hadn't asked me first, about the conversation we had, and how it all escalated until I finally told them to leave. Sandra listened quietly, only interrupting once in a while to ask a small question. When I finished talking, she paused for a long moment before responding. I understand why you felt that way, Ava. I really do. But don't you think maybe you overreacted a little? It's Caleb. He's your son. Surely you could have handled this without kicking him out. There it was, the answer I had expected. That gentle suggestion that I had exaggerated. That I had gone too far. And maybe she was right. Maybe there were other ways I could have dealt with it. But I also knew that if I had let them stay after showing up without asking, I would be teaching Caleb, again, that my boundaries didn't matter. I didn't overreact, Sandra. I reacted appropriately. Caleb is 42 years old. He's a grown man with a stable job and more than enough money to pay for a hotel. He decided it was easier to use my space without asking me. That's not okay, no matter how much I love him. But isn't that what families do? We help each other when there's a need. We don't ask permission every single time. I should have known she would say something like that. She had lived with me for a whole year after all. And during that time I never charged her rent, never asked her to help much with expenses, never pushed her to hurry and find her own place. I was the generous, understanding sister. And now that I was setting boundaries, I probably looked like a hypocrite. Do you remember when you lived with me after your divorce, Sandra? There was an uncomfortable silence on the line. Of course I remember. You were so generous to let me stay. Do you know why I didn't ask you to leave after a few weeks? Or even a few months? She didn't answer right away, so I continued before she could speak. Because the truth had been waiting in my chest for years. Because I was scared. I was scared. I was afraid that if I set boundaries, if I told you to look for your own place, you would think I was selfish or that I didn't love you enough. I was afraid you would think I was a bad sister. So I swallowed my discomfort, ignored my need for personal space, and let you stay, because that's what good sisters were supposed to do. Ava, I didn't know you felt that way. You never said anything. Exactly. I never said anything. And that was my mistake. By keeping quiet, I taught everyone that I had no boundaries, that they could take what they needed from me without thinking about the cost to me. And after decades of doing that, I'm finally learning to speak up. And it hurts. It hurts to set boundaries. It hurts to disappoint people. But it hurts less than disappearing in my own life. Sandra sighed deeply. I don't know what to say, Ava. I understand what you're saying, I really do. But Caleb is very hurt. He says he won't talk to you for a long time. That's his choice. I'm not punishing him. I'm protecting my space. If he thinks that's enough reason to cut me off, then that says more about him than about me. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. The conversation didn't end badly, but I didn't feel fully understood either. Sandra came from the same generation as me, raised with the same ideas of what it meant to be a good woman, a good mother, a good sister. It was hard for her to understand why I was suddenly breaking those rules after following them so faithfully for so long. At exactly 3 p.m., the doorbell rang. I got up from the sofa where I'd been reading, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Caleb was standing there, alone. No sign of Chloe. He was holding 2 big canvas bags, probably to collect the things they had left behind. Hello, Mom. His voice was flat. Noi moustin. Not angry, not warm, just neutral. Like someone doing something they really didn't want to do. Hello, Caleb. Komein. He walked past me without looking at my face and went straight to the guest room. I closed the door and stood in the living room, unsure if I should follow him or give him space. Eventually I decided to stay where I was, but I kept the guest room door in sight. I heard him moving things around, opening and closing drawers, zipping the bags. It took him about 10 minutes to pack everything. When he came out, he had both bags over his shoulders, his expression still that blank, controlled mask. He stopped halfway between the bedroom and the exit. For a moment, I thought he might say something important. Maybe we would finally talk. But instead, he just nodded toward the hallway. Can I use the restroom quickly before I leave? Of course. He set the bags by the door and went into the bathroom. I heard the water running, the familiar sounds of someone moving around a space they knew well. And at that moment, the reality of what I had done hit me. Not the boundary, not protecting my space. That still felt right. But the fact that my son, my only son, now felt like a stranger in the house he grew up in, that he had to ask permission just to use the bathroom, that the distance between us had grown so much in only 24 hours. He came out of the bathroom, picked up the bags, and headed for the door. I followed him. He opened it, stopped in the doorway, and finally, looked straight at me. "Is there anything you want to say, Mom?" There were so many things. I wanted to tell him I loved him. I wanted to explain again why I did what I did. I wanted to ask if we could ever have a relationship where I was seen as more than a convenient resource. But what I said was this: "I love you, Caleb. I will always love you. But I'm not going to sacrifice my well-being anymore just to avoid your discomfort. If that means we don't talk for a while, then so be it. But the door will always be open for a relationship where we respect each other equally." He nodded slowly, like he was trying to absorb my words. He didn't say "I love you too." He didn't say he understood. He just nodded. "Goodbye, Mom." "Goodbye, Caleb." The door closed softly behind him, but the sound felt louder than it should have. I stood in that same spot for several minutes, staring at the closed door, listening to the heavy silence filling my condo. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. I returned to the living room and sat in my armchair by the window. My hands were shaking a little, so I held them together and took deep breaths to steady my heart. I had done it. I had kept my boundary. Even when my son came to collect his things with that hurt look on his face. Even when every part of me wanted to chase after him, say sorry, and beg him to stay. The next few days passed slowly. Every morning, I followed my usual routine: coffee, shower, breakfast. But everything felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, a constant awareness that something between us had cracked. I didn't know if I had broken my relationship with Caleb, or just broken the unhealthy pattern we had followed for decades. Sandra called me 2 more times that week. During the second call, her tone had changed. It wasn't just worry anymore. There was something deeper. "Ava, I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about when I stayed with you after my divorce." I heard her inhale deeply, like she was gathering courage. "I never thanked you properly for that year. I never really understood what you sacrificed to give me space. I just assumed you were fine because you never said anything. But I should have asked. I should have been more considerate. I hadn't expected an apology." Something in my chest loosened that I didn't even know was tight. "Thank you, Sandra. That means a lot. Maybe you were right about what you told Caleb. Maybe we all took it for granted that you would always be available, that you'd always say yes, that you'd never have your own needs." 2 weeks passed before Caleb reached out again. It wasn't an apology, not even a conversation, just a photo. Him and Chloe standing in front of what looked like their newly renovated condo. The message said, "Renovations are finished. We're back home." He didn't mention the incident. He didn't ask how I was. It was cold and factual, the kind of message you'd send to someone distant, not your mother. But it was still something, a thin thread of communication, and I decided to accept it as a small first step. I replied, "I'm glad you're comfortable in your space now. Take care." He didn't respond. Days turned into weeks. I continued with my life. I went grocery shopping on Thursdays. I met friends for coffee on Tuesdays. I read books I'd been postponing for months. I spent long afternoons on my balcony, just watching the city. Something I never allowed myself to do when I was always waiting for someone to need me. And slowly, the guilt I carried, the feeling that I had done something terrible, began to fade. In its place came something different. Not quite happiness, but peace. Like finally letting go of something heavy after carrying it for so long that your arms forgot what freedom felt like. A month after the incident, I was choosing tomatoes at the market when my phone rang. It was Caleb. A real call, not a message. My heart sped up when I saw his name. I put the tomatoes back and moved away from the crowd before answering. "Hello. Mom." His voice was different, softer. The defensive edge from last time was gone. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm well. And you?" He paused. I could hear traffic in the background, like he was walking outside. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about what you said. I stayed silent, giving him space. You were right, Mom. Not about everything. I still think you could have handled it differently, but you were right about the main thing. I showed up without asking. I assumed you'd be available like always. And that wasn't okay. Something inside me relaxed, something that had been tight for weeks. Thank you for saying that, Caleb. Chloe and I have been talking. She says she's always felt like I take you for granted, that I treat your kindness like it's something you owe me, instead of something you choose to give. And I think she's right. Hearing those words from my son filled me with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope? Not the kind of hope that wished things would go back to how they used to be. I didn't want that. But hope that maybe, finally, we could build something new, something honest. I appreciate you telling me this, I said. I know it wasn't easy. Mom, he said softly. I was wondering if we could have lunch together. Just you and me. No Bella, no pressure. Just a talk. Would you like that? I surprised myself by smiling. I'd love that. We chose a small restaurant halfway between our condos and planned to meet the following Saturday. When I ended the call, I realized tears were sliding down my cheeks, but these tears were different from the ones I cried that first night. These tears were relief, gratitude, a small sign of healing. I hadn't felt this nervous in years. I changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple brown dress that made me feel comfortable and dignified. I reached the restaurant 5 minutes early and sat by the window. Caleb arrived exactly on time. He looked different, something softer in the way he walked toward me, something more humble. He sat across from me, and for a moment, we just looked at each other. Mom. Son. We ordered food. At first, the conversation was tight, awkward, filled with pauses. But slowly as we ate, the words became easier. Caleb told me about work, about a problem with one of his projects. I asked about Chloe and how she was handling her own work stress. Then, between the main course and dessert, he put down his fork and looked straight at me. Mom, I need to tell you something, he said. And I need you to listen fully before you respond. My stomach tightened, but I nodded. My whole life, I saw you as my mother first and as a person second. I never thought about who you were outside of what you did for me, and that was selfish. It was unfair, and I'm sorry. His voice cracked at the end. His eyes were wet. When you kicked me out of your house, I was furious. I thought you were being cruel, that you were punishing me. But after weeks of thinking, talking to Bella, even talking to a therapist, I realized something. He took a shaky breath. I realized I never asked what you need. I acted like your whole life revolved around mine, and that has to change. Tears fell freely from my eyes now, and I didn't stop them. I don't need you to be the perfect mother who always says yes, he continued. I need to know the real person, Ava, not just Mom. And if that means you tell me no sometimes, then I accept it. I'd rather have an honest relationship than continue the pattern where I take, and you give until nothing is left. I reached across the table and took his hand. It was warm and trembling. Thank you, Caleb, I whispered. You don't know how much it means to hear that. We talked for 2 full hours, really talked. Not the surface-level conversations we'd lived on for years, but deep conversations about who we were and what we needed. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward spots, painful truths, and things hard to admit. But everything was real. And real was worth more than all the pretend harmony we'd lived with before. When we finally said goodbye at the restaurant door, Caleb hugged me. Not the quick family hug he used to give, but a real long hug that said, I see you. I value you. I love you for who you are. Things weren't perfect. There were moments when Caleb slipped into old habits of assuming I was always available. But the difference now was that I had a voice, and he was learning to listen. I learned something too. Respecting your children doesn't end when they're grown. Sometimes the biggest lesson comes the day you finally say no. The day you create the boundary you should have made years ago. The day you choose yourself without apology. Being a mother doesn't mean being invisible. It doesn't mean sacrificing your entire life in the name of love. It doesn't mean your house, your time, or your peace are open for anyone without your permission. Being a mother means loving deeply, but also teaching your children that true love includes respect. Healthy relationships have boundaries. And you too are a person with needs, dreams, and every right to control your own life. That Thursday afternoon, when I found the suitcases at my door, wasn't the end of my relationship with Caleb. It was the beginning of a new one. A relationship built on honesty instead of obligation, on respect instead of one-sided sacrifice, on real love instead of old patterns passed down from generations that taught women to serve silently. Now, when I sit in my armchair by the window with a hot cup of coffee, looking around my quiet, tidy condo, I feel something I haven't felt in decades. Pride. Pride for choosing myself. Pride for finding my voice. Pride for teaching my son that love isn't the absence of boundaries. It's the presence of respect. My house is still my house. My life is still my life. And I, Ava Holloway, at 68 years old, am finally the owner of both. For most of my life, I thought love meant giving until I had nothing left. But now I understand. Love also means saying enough. And still having space in your heart to forgive, to grow, and to begin again. Setting boundaries doesn't destroy love. It protects it. And when we respect ourselves, others start to see our worth too. That's the peace I found. And I hope you find yours as well. If this story touched you, show your support by giving this video a like. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I'm curious. If you'd like to support my journey, you're welcome to send a small donation. Thank you for listening and giving me your precious time. For more life stories like this, check the other videos on my channel and subscribe. On the screen, you'll see 2 new stories I know you'll enjoy. Click on one and start listening right away. Love.